The moment Ethan Calloway stepped through the front doors of his family's mansion, he knew something was terribly wrong. The house was silent in a way it had never been before, and the sound of his suitcase rolling across the marble floor seemed painfully loud. Then he saw the dining table, his pregnant wife's untouched breakfast still sitting beside a cold cup of tea. Upstairs, behind a locked bedroom door, he found her sitting on the floor, trembling, one hand protecting her unborn child, and the other clutching a small photograph of her late mother. Ethan had been away for only 3 days on a business emergency. But in those 3 days, his mother had turned his wife's home into a place of fear. Ethan Calloway was 38, the owner of a rapidly expanding technology company based in Chicago, Illinois. From the outside, his life looked almost perfect. He had wealth, a beautiful mansion in a quiet suburb, and a successful career. But behind the polished gates was a man who had spent years carrying grief. Ethan had lost his first wife, Caroline, to complications after the birth of their daughter, Lily. Since then, he had raised Lily as a single father, refusing to let anyone replace the mother she barely remembered. His life changed when he met Nora Bennett, a quiet housekeeper who worked part-time at the mansion. Nora was different from everyone Ethan had known. She never cared about his money and never tried to impress him. She simply treated Lily with patience and kindness, helping her with homework, preparing her favorite meals, and sitting beside her whenever nightmares woke her during the night. One afternoon, Lily's 10th birthday was approaching, and she asked Ethan if Nora could join them for dinner. Ethan hesitated, knowing his mother, Margaret Calloway, would probably object. But Lily's happiness mattered more. That birthday dinner became the beginning of something neither Ethan nor Nora expected. Nora had spent most of her adult life caring for others while quietly putting her own dreams aside. She was 34, intelligent, warm-hearted, and painfully familiar with loss. Her father had died when she was young, and her mother had passed away several years earlier. She had no wealthy relatives waiting to rescue her, only an aging apartment, a modest savings account, and a heart that had learned not to expect too much from life. Over the following months, Ethan and Nora grew closer. Their relationship was not built on grand gestures. It grew through ordinary moments: morning coffee, Lily's school projects, afternoon walks through the garden, and quiet lunches at the kitchen counter. When Ethan eventually asked Nora to marry him, she cried because she had never imagined anyone would choose her so completely. Ethan believed he had finally found the family he had spent years trying to rebuild. But Margaret saw things differently. She believed Nora had manipulated her son and was only interested in his fortune. She began spreading cruel rumors among family friends, suggesting Nora had planned everything from the beginning. Ethan initially defended his wife, but Margaret was clever. She never attacked Nora openly when he was present. Instead, she planted small doubts, reminding him of his first wife and warning him that Lily could be hurt again. When Nora became pregnant, Margaret's behavior grew worse. She insisted that the baby was moving too quickly into a family that did not belong to Nora. She criticized Nora's clothing, her cooking, her medical appointments, and even the way she spoke to Lily. Nora tried to ignore it, believing that Margaret would eventually accept her. She did not want Ethan caught between his mother and pregnant wife. Then Ethan had to leave Chicago for a 3-day business trip to New York. Before leaving, he kissed Nora goodbye and promised to return before her next prenatal appointment. He believed his family was safe. He had no idea that Margaret had been waiting for his absence. During those 3 days, Nora was slowly isolated. Margaret told the household staff that Nora was exaggerating her pregnancy discomfort and ordered them not to make special arrangements for her. She removed Nora's access to the family car and told her she was no longer welcome in certain rooms of the mansion. Worst of all, she told Lily that her father had made a terrible mistake by marrying Nora. Lily became confused and frightened, caught between the grandmother she loved and the stepmother who had become her emotional anchor. On the third afternoon, Nora experienced severe abdominal pain while standing alone in the kitchen. She asked Margaret for help, but Margaret dismissed her, accusing her of seeking attention. Nora managed to reach her bedroom, where she sat on the floor until the pain eased. She spent the rest of the afternoon crying silently, convinced that Ethan would never understand what had happened. She began packing a small suitcase, intending to leave before he returned. But Ethan returned earlier than expected. When he walked into the mansion and found the untouched breakfast, his instincts immediately told him something was wrong. He searched the house until he discovered Nora upstairs. She looked exhausted, pale, and emotionally broken. Ethan knelt beside her, and when he saw the bruised mark on her wrist from where Margaret had grabbed her during an argument, something inside him shattered. He demanded the truth. At first, Nora refused to speak because she feared destroying his relationship with his mother. But Lily finally appeared at the doorway holding a small voice recorder. She had recorded Margaret's cruel accusations because she was afraid nobody would believe Nora. Ethan listened to the recording in silence. Every excuse he had once made for his mother disappeared. Margaret entered the room expecting her son to defend her. Instead, Ethan stood between her and his pregnant wife. He told his mother that wealth could buy houses, cars, and businesses, but it could never buy the right to mistreat someone he loved. Margaret argued that she had only been protecting the family, but Ethan answered that a family was not protected by fear, humiliation, or cruelty. That afternoon, Ethan made the hardest decision of his life. He asked Margaret to leave the mansion. He did not do it out of hatred. He did it because he finally understood that forgiveness did not require allowing someone to continue causing harm. He arranged for Nora to see her doctor immediately and stayed beside her throughout the appointment. Thankfully, their unborn baby was safe. Weeks later, Nora gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Grace. Lily became the proudest big sister in the world, and Ethan often stood in the nursery doorway watching his 3 daughters, one by blood, one by marriage, and one by birth, sleep peacefully together. Nora eventually stopped calling herself the woman who had been given a second chance. She realized she had not been given anything. She had fought for her place, survived rejection, and built a family through love rather than blood. Ethan learned something equally important. Sometimes the people who share your last name are not the ones who deserve the closest place in your heart. One bright afternoon months later, Ethan and Nora sat together in the garden while Lily pushed baby Grace gently in a stroller. The mansion no longer felt like a place filled with painful memories. It felt like home. Nora looked at Ethan and smiled, realizing that love had not erased her past. It had simply given her a future worth living for. What would you have done if you were in Ethan's place? Would you forgive Margaret, or would you protect your wife and children by walking away? Share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments.